We went to the mountain in Bandung and we rented a huge house and everybody stayed there while we were all quarantining and then got back to practice. And I think really started to understand, how this team flows and works. And when we got into the bubble in Jakarta, we played, I think, 17 games in a month and we won 14 games in a row. I really felt like, this team was starting to get it. The mentality, the attitude, some of the toughness that I wanted to bring to the team, the details. They started to call us like tiki taka of Indonesia and basketball. We went back in the locker room. We were really frustrated. We were angry. We were thinking we shouldn't have lost this game. And we had like some real heart to heart talks and conversations about, this should never happen. We need to really respond, have a great response. This is what shows what a team is about, resiliency. And we went to go 5 games in a row. We held 5 teams in a row under 40 points. And it was the first time in IBL history that ever happened. I think every game was almost won by 30 or 40 points. That level of intensity, focus, attitude, force that the guys were playing with, that stretch of games, I said, oh boy, we could really, really be something here. And took off and just continued to win and win and win. That was when I said, okay, the culture is starting to grow. When it comes to just leading the program and pushing this Indonesia basketball in the right direction, I believe that I can really help with that. Number one, like we discussed before, with the mentality, the mindset, the system, the rules, the details. And I think also playing the style that I think suits Indonesia.
If you are given full control of Indonesian basketball, maybe from under 14 all the way up to the senior team, where would you start?
Hey friends, welcome back to One on One with Jordan. My guest today is Coach David Singleton. He is the 4-time Indonesian Basketball League Coach of the Year, champion of the Indonesian Basketball League with Prawira Bandung, and now he is the head coach of Indonesian men's national team. From Auckland to Southeast Asia, he has built a system, a culture, and a movement. This is Coach David Singleton's story. Let's dive in, guys.
Before all the Coach of the Year's titles, before the championship, let's get back to the start of your journey. You started off as a American football player. You're
Yeah.
not even a basketball player, right?
No, it's true. It's one of my interesting stories. I think people, when they look me up, they're like, wait, he didn't play professional basketball or anything like that. Actually, no, I didn't. I was a dual sport athlete growing up. I played baseball, American football, and basketball, all 3 sports pretty much year round. So our family never really had breaks. My brother was a professional baseball player. So when I was young, he was aspiring to be a baseball player. So we grew up driving and traveling all over California to different places. But we were always taught to play multiple sports. And the way that I came up, by the grace of God, I was good at multiple sports. So my senior year of high school, I was the MVP of the league in football. I was all Northern California in football. I was MVP of the league in basketball. I was all Northern California and all state in basketball. And I was all league first team in baseball in my senior year of high school. So I had a lot of choices and a lot of options. My best friend was really good at football. And at that time, I was very torn on what I wanted to do. So I ended up pursuing football instead of basketball. And I just went with that all the way through college. But I always missed and loved the game of basketball. I feel like I always was brought up first with that. My father, he played basketball. My uncle played at University of California, Berkeley. He also played in the NBA for a short stint with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Sacramento Kings. His name is Kevin Singleton. And so I have some genes there and I have some history there. So basketball has always been something that probably my first love, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow, man, that is like elite athletes back in the
Yeah.
days,
Yeah,
and
man.
the athlete genes run through your.
Right, right. My family. Yeah. Funny story. Speaking of that, my high school year, my junior year, we played in Campbell Hall, Hollywood, California. And at that time, the 2 guys that people might know their names of, Justin and Drew Holiday, were playing on that team against me. It was a big showdown. We were number 1 in the state of California. They were number 2. and we ended up losing to them maybe by 5 or 6. I can't remember. They were really good. They had 4 D1 players on that team. And that game, I had 26 points. That's one of the highlights of my life, although I know that would never happen again against Drew Holiday. But yeah, I mean, growing up in California, you play great competition, and it really, really helped mold me and shape me into the person and competitor I am. So I was just blessed to be able to know all 3 sports, not just how to play, but also the game within the game.
All right.
Yeah.
So what I mean, just now you mentioned you are not even 40 yet, right?
Yes.
So what drew you to coaching overseas so early? I mean, most coaches maybe they start off in United States, and then maybe after a few more years they only then they go overseas. But I think you started off like coaching overseas, right?
I did at a really young age, basically 27 years old. I was 26, 27. I was coaching high school basketball at my high school in the States, in California, Salesian High School. Shout out to Coach Mellis and everybody over there. And then I was working just a regular, 9 to 5 job, kind of finding my way in the work world and the workforce. And I was feeling, like I needed something else. And ever since, I mean, as an athlete, it's very difficult to transition from playing to just regular working, getting out in the field and doing those things because you were so accustomed to being an athlete every day. And I know since I've been 5 years old, I've been playing some kind of sport just year round, basically. And I always felt better when I'm in a team, around a team, within a sport. I just never felt like, finances or, we're running businesses or doing all these things in an office was my thing. And I realized that as I continue to work. So funny story, right now, he is the assistant coach at BYU, Brigham Young University. His name is Tim Fanning. He is the one that gave me the opportunity. We were basically neighborhood buddies growing up. He was a basketball fan as well, coming from a sports family. And he was working in New Zealand at the time, in 2015. And he had just received the head coaching job there. And he came back home to America to scout players. And he came to our game, our high school game. He came to watch. Both of our high schools are rivals. And so he came over and he saw me in the crowd and he said, "Hey, man, I see you're coaching. I need an assistant coach at the professional ranks in New Zealand." I go, "New Zealand?" I'm thinking, I'm not even thinking about traveling. I used to be a guy that never wanted to travel, just wanted to stay in California, never leave. I was that type of person. And he kind of broke it down to me and gave me this opportunity and options to go out there, learn, and be a professional basketball coach. And at that time, I thought it was a great, something that really came to me. I was like, this is perfect timing for me to go over here and really pursue and do what I want to do, which is be involved in a team, in a sport, back into it, after being an athlete for so long. So he presented me that opportunity. We went out to Nelson, New Zealand, in the NBL and the NZBL, excuse me, and competed there in that league. My first year in 2015, being a fresh coach, didn't know anything, what was going on, just really learning the ropes. Made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot. He taught me so many things, and we ended up losing in the championship final to Torrey Craig, who played for Phoenix and played for the Chicago Bulls, and he was on a team in that league. And so my first experience was quite an experience, especially really good basketball in New Zealand as well, really good players there. And I was ever so blessed to get over there. And Tim has made his way, 5-year assistant in Maccabi Tel Aviv in the EuroLeague. And then he went over to OTE, Overtime Elite, and he was a head coach there. And then he ended up getting the associate head coach at BYU now. So he's doing very well. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So early in your journey, right? Did you ever feel like you didn't belong? Like you had to prove something?
Absolutely. Early on in New Zealand, we had 3 national team players on that team with high ego, and I had never been around that, from a grown man standpoint. People that were playing, their regular seasons in Italy and Spain and different places like this. And it was just much more intense and much more detailed, maybe than I was accustomed to. And then people kind of counting on you and relying on you for answers, resources, as well as just someone to listen, ear to listen. And it was new for me. I made a lot of mistakes. I'll be honest. I think a couple times I was even forgetting I was a coach. Sometimes I thought I was still a player, the way I approached the day and those things, even just supporting my head coach, learning how to be an assistant. And those things were so, so new to me. And so I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, a lot. And grateful that I had people that supported me and continue to help me through it. But that's what you have to do. You have to make a bunch of mistakes, figure it out, fix it, and try to correct those. But definitely some errors, whether it was on court, off the court, in support of my head coach, helping players out. There was a bunch. And I really found that, having a strong family behind me, as well as mentors and people in my life really helped me with that. But that's the only way you can learn. And that's kind of been my journey, is learning through failure and mistakes. And I think that's helped mold me.
All right. So
Yeah.
can you describe the moment that where you like figure out, okay, basketball coaching, that's my calling, that's my life work?
Right. I think it was definitely during my time in New Zealand. I think, seeing the way people prepared, how serious these guys took the game, I think probably was never how serious I took it. I mean, I loved the sport. I was very competitive, but what went into a day, I mean, the preparation, the waking up, the film sessions, the workouts in the mornings, afternoons, the details, the scouts, all of these things really opened my eyes to like, wow, this is not just playing. This is actually a job, and you have to do so many things before actually the game happens to be there and be ready and prepared. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing to see that process, be a part of that process, and help people along the way, reach, maybe their goal or their whatever they wanted to do, their vision for themselves. And I just thought that was so cool. I really got into the player development side of it. That's where I helped a lot early in my career, just really working guys out, keeping them sharp, as well as, some of the scouts and videos I would do early on in my career. And I think that was the one that really caught my eye. And I was like, okay, this is something I can do. I can see success. I think people naturally got close to me. I thought I thought it was I thought that was very good. Like I was attractable. And then I think also, I'll be honest with you, when I first got the call, I don't want to move too fast ahead, but when I got the call from Tony Garbaletto, who was the previous Saigon Heat coach, to come across the world, and originally they called me to go to Vietnam, and I was like, Vietnam? Like, whoa, Vietnam, America, that's kind of a tricky situation right there. When we grow up, we're thinking, that's not good, for the history. But it was broken down, it was explained to me. And then what really, made me just loving this whole thing was being able to travel, as you know, in the ABL. It was almost like our own, Asia League, Euro League type Champions League for Asia, Southeast Asia. And I thought that was the coolest thing to have and be a part of. And then, just being able to travel the world, and coach and do what I love to do really, really intrigued me. Yeah.
And since we met in ABL, right, I gotta ask this, right? Because for me, it's a shame that it's gone forever. Right. ABL.
Right.
I have so many good memories in ABL. So what is your best memories in the NBA?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would say first was just the going to each country and seeing the pride, in each country, and all the players, the staff, the fans, just going in that process thinking, man, I'm going out here and representing the country right now, not just a state or even growing up a city, or a school. It was about like a whole entire country. And I thought that was such a unique thing that wasn't really happening outside of Europe, when it comes to competition in basketball. So I thought that was such a cool thing, traveling the world, meeting so many people, from different places, realizing that people could play basketball in Malaysia and Singapore, and they were good, and they were pretty solid players. And Asia's not that bad at basketball, actually. There's guys that can actually, play the game, and kind of gain more of my respect in a sense. So ABL was such a unique league because you'd play sometimes, 2 times a week, maybe, travel twice to different countries. The travel was crazy sometimes, but you had to enjoy it. And just competing against countries and really good imports, and just seeing, like I said, so many different places that maybe some people would never get to see in their lifetime. I thought was really cool. So I just, I really miss it, like you said, and I think they're trying to bring it back in certain ways with some of these Champions Leagues and things like that. But still, I feel like it's not the same in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the same. The feeling is not the same. Saigon, they always have one of the toughest home court.
Yes. Absolutely. I think that is also one of the reasons I stayed, for 4 years. I've been blessed to be in different locations around the world for multiple years. I know it's not always like that for every coach, to be able to kind of have that continuity and longevity. But over there, just the fans were so passionate. They did a great job in the company and organization to promote the game. I did in my time, I think 4 years, I probably did over 100 school visits around the city and just interacting with children and schools and teachers and just so many of the community to get them involved. And, we would have events that come out to the game and you get this and you get that. And so I think that mixed in with just the game growing over there at a rapid rate, I think you found a lot of fans that were just so interested and excited about it. And, you know, hey, there's not too much going on over there outside of football, right? In some of these countries, let's just be honest. I mean, if you don't have soccer or football, that sport, there's not too many other things where people can go have a great night out, go grab some food, watch a game, maybe watch some foreigners playing, people dunking, shooting, running around. And so I think that provided, another source of entertainment for people to go
That's
out
right.
and watch with their family. So I just felt like we had one of the best crowds in the league by far, and we made it hard on teams. And I'll never forget those experiences in some of those games. Sometimes we won, sometimes we lost, but they were good games. Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah,
The one of the toughest home court in the ABL. But let's talk about the project that put your name on the map,
yeah.
Prawira Bandung.
Right,
So
right.
before you joined them, they were not winning, right? Uh, I mean, maybe they were middle in the table, something like that.
Mhm.
So what did you see or feel the moment like you took over or you walk in, you first met your team, your players?
Yeah, I thought so. So the year before, I coached at a place called Bima Perkasa in Yogyakarta, which is in central Java Island. So it's south from us, essentially. And we competed against them. And I really felt like at that time I played against them. I'm thinking, man, this team has a lot of potential. They got a couple players at, national team level or close to it. They have some size. They have some guys that can handle the ball. And I'm thinking, they shouldn't be performing this way. They're kind of middle of the table or bottom of the table. I think one of the years they were like 1-8 to start the season, with really, really high quality players, even people that you might know that played for CLS Surabaya. And so, I was thinking, wow, this could be a beautiful project. And even understanding the couple of the players and rookies that were coming in the next couple years, hearing the rumors about that, I was like, oh man, this could be, the next kind of juggernaut outside of, the Pelita Jaya, Satria Muda teams that, win all the time. And I thought that Indonesia needed that. They needed another competitor and a team that can challenge some of the big teams. And I just felt like, this team is the team to do it. I didn't realize the crazy fan base and sports frenzy town that Bandung was in regards to their football, their soccer. They are essentially the Real Madrid of Indonesia. They have, now 4 championships. They just won yesterday to seal the back-to-back La Liga champion or Liga 1 championship in Indonesia. And so there's a really rabid fan base here, similar to Ho Chi Minh, to Saigon. And I just thought, man, this could be a beautiful place to set myself up and get here. And so after my season in Bima Perkasa, as I was explaining, I got the coach of the year, my first coach of the year there. And then from there, my contract was up, and Bandung had just fired Prawira had just fired their coach. And I thought, let me connect the dots here. We reached out and met the director, Teddy, and we made it happen. I think within less than a week, I went over there and I started to work with Prawira. So it was a great situation.
All right. So
Yeah,
because when the teams are not winning, the hope is low, the morale is low. How do you start building that belief?
Yeah, I think that's true. And the organization really wanted to win. So it was an interesting situation where I think everything was trying to be set up to win and they just weren't. So, sometimes you don't necessarily know why. It could be a player thing, it could be a coach thing. And I think for this situation, it definitely was a coach thing. No disrespect to the coaches before, but I just thought I provided a little bit more accountability, a little bit more passion for the game, and a little bit more of details and standards. And I think that's what everybody would say about me when I first came here was I totally shifted the culture from the team that maybe thought, we could be that team that just makes the playoffs and we're happy that we lost to the best team by only 5 points, to a team that's like, no, let's beat the best teams. Let's, make sure we finish in the top four. Let's make sure, we go try to make a final. And let's just have the confidence and belief in ourselves that we can compete against anybody. Because luckily for me, when I got here, the roster was very strong. There wasn't too much to do when it comes to fixing the team. It was just about installing a system, a structure, disciplines and rules for the players, and then just obviously enhancing the accountability. I think that's what this team missed when I was here before. I think there wasn't much structure behind what was going on. And once I brought that in, I think what we did, we really took off even my first year.
Just now you mentioned about rules. So what were your non-negotiables from day one? Like what's one thing you changed off the court that had the biggest impact on the court?
Yeah, I think just togetherness. I think the boys spending more time together. We did a lot of team bonding in my first year. I think we did 4, almost 3 team bondings. We did different outings around town, whether that was playing pool or bowling and stuff like that, just to continue to build that connection and chemistry. And then yeah, I think those type of getting to know the player, understanding what he's about, as well as also, to be honest with you, getting to know my coaches. I think having a great and strong coaching staff is very important. And I think, having them to lean on and rely on, as well as execute what you're doing and being the other second, third, fourth voice that you need to implement your rules and plans is also important. So creating relationships with your coaches is something that I believe in as well. But yeah, just building that togetherness, that camaraderie, doing stuff that has nothing to do with basketball, I think also helps. And then, yeah, I just think just getting that buy-in, understanding that these guys need to trust you and believe in you, and you have to be your authentic self and not just make them think that he's just, Coach Dave, the yeller on the court, but he's also a human being, and he's a guy that, has been through it as well, and is approachable, and I can talk to, and do all those things. So I think creating that, because I think in the past they also did struggle with that. Again, not to talk poorly about any other coach, but those are some of the things that the players that I've had have spoken to me about.
And you talk about team culture. We all know that culture isn't built overnight.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so was there a moment where you felt like, yeah, it clicked, everyone clicked? Was there a moment?
Absolutely. So funny that you said that, because early in my process, I guess we played a bunch of scrimmages my first season, and then we kind of, it was the COVID time, right? So the beginning of the season, we were in a bubble. Then they tried to go to, a series, and they went to a series in Bandung. We played series. We played 3 games in each city, and then you would travel. We would wait a week, and then you would travel to another city, and you would play 3 teams in that city. So that's kind of how the league was originally set up. It was not home and away. So when we got to the second city, which was Bandung, COVID outbreak happened. And at that time, we were 2-2. And people were thinking, Coach Dave can't make it happen here. And, these guys are still doing the same thing that they've done in the past. They lost to a team they were not supposed to lose to, this and that. And then we ended up having to take a break for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. So we went away. We had to go isolate, make sure that everybody was safe. The whole league had to go do it. And then the league created a bubble in Jakarta. And in that time that we took the break, we came together. We spent time together. We went to the mountain in Bandung, and we rented a huge house, and everybody stayed there while we were all quarantining. So we played games, guys, we did stuff outside. We did music, we did dancing, we did, all types of different things, and then got back to practice. And I think really started to understand, how this team flows and works. And when we got into the bubble in Jakarta, we played, I think, 17 games in a month, and we won 15 games in a row or something, 14 games in a row. And as we started to stack them together, I really felt like, this team was starting to get it. The mentality, the attitude, some of the toughness that I wanted to bring to the team, the details. They started to call us like tiki-taka of Indonesia in basketball. We were leading every game in assists. I think we were 24, 25 a game, throwing assists all over the place. And so, yeah, that was one of my funnest years to ever coach, because I think just the ball was moving, everything was popping. We felt like the Spurs of 2014 and some of those times. And so it was a really good time, and I feel like that was some of the best basketball we ever played. Yeah.
You must have you must be very proud of that. To
Yes.
see that team playing like that.
Yes. And then I'll have to share some videos with you so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have video to show?
Yeah, I mean, we can. I mean, I'll send it to you later, but
All
just
right.
to share,
No
and just
problem.
it was our 2022 season, and it was a great time. We ended up finishing third that year, but we had the longest winning streak. We beat every team in the league, and it was a really cool time. We had, I think, 4 national team players at that time. They were not national team players, but after that year, they became national team players. So it was a cool thing, really cool thing. Yeah,
All right. Okay.
yeah,
And every great team has a moment where the switch flips,
yeah.
and when you know it's different. So was there one game or one series or any moment where you knew this team isn't the same anymore?
Yes. So we had taken a tough loss to a person who also played in the IBL, Akeem Scott. Okay, he played for Rands, and he also ran Simba, and he also played for Saigon Heat with me. I was coaching at that time, and he came on, and we had a, let's say, 4 games in a row winning streak, and he was newly acquired into the team, and they beat us in a very hostile game. It was very intense. People were talking back and forth, and it was very physical, and they beat us, and it was kind of a shock. And they celebrated, and they did the whole works, and everybody's so proud. And I said, okay. So we went back in the locker room. We were really frustrated. We were angry. We were thinking we shouldn't have lost this game. And we had like some real heart to heart talks and conversations about, this should never happen. We played down to our level, blah, blah, blah. And we went to the next game, and I said, we need to really, respond, have a great response. This is what shows what a team is about, resiliency. And we went to go 5 games in a row. We held 5 teams in a row under 40 points. So they scored 36, 34, 37, and 38, and 35, I believe, in 5 games in a row. And it was the first time in IBL history that ever happened. And I think every game was almost won by 30 or 40 points. And so that level of intensity, focus, attitude, force that the guys were playing with, that stretch of games, I said, oh boy, we could really, really be something here. And then, like I said, we took off and just continued to win and win and win. And that was when I said, okay, the culture is starting to grow. It's starting to show. And I think these guys are really getting behind what we're trying to do here.
That loss really sparked the team, like give the team fire.
Yes, it really did. And, because, when we lose, obviously for everyone, I think all coaches, it's like the world's over. You feel terrible and everybody's upset. But we felt like we created a standard early on. And I think that they never had. And that's the interesting part about, and I always say this to, some of my people around me, is like, it's funny when you go to a team and they've won a lot, you're thinking, okay, you're supposed to win. Well, we were with the team, it was like they didn't win a lot, but the standard was still high within the fan base, within the management. It was like, we should win. And I was thinking, well, there's nothing to show that we should win as far as just, history, but the roster does say we have enough to win. And I think what I was really proud of doing is that we were able to bring the culture, the values, and the standards of, like, we expect to win every night in my first season. I think sometimes you might find places where, oh, let's just get through the season and I'll continue to build my culture into year 2 and year 3. And we just did it right away in year 1. And that was probably my proudest thing, was able to establish that in year 1.
Yeah, because from should win to expect to win, that's totally different things.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference.
Yes, exactly.
And I know you are a big believer. I know you are big of Kaizen, the
Yes.
Japanese philosophy Kaizen. So how do you apply this philosophy to your team or to the player development?
It's important. We try to, first of all, establish what our vision, our goals are at the beginning of the season, to let people know, okay, first of all, we have our team stuff that we want to accomplish, our goals, our statistics, where we want to end up. We don't like to make them too long term. We like to make them short term. And I think that goes into Kaizen. If you're talking about, hey, let's 1, 2, 3 championship at the beginning of the season, it's like, that's not really authentic. And, you never know what's going to happen throughout a season. But if you can do like 1, 2, 3, I'm going to get my jump shot better. I think that can make a lot of sense. Or 1, 2, 3, I'm going to, not turn the ball over today. If you're focusing on those small goals, I think you'll still end up seeing huge gains. And that's what we really did here, was we just tried to build habits and standards of like, all right, look, your process might be slow, for a couple guys might have a faster process, but as long as the process is moving, as long as it's going forward and you're taking a step a day, even if it's a short step, that is what Kaizen is, just the daily process of improvement. Everybody talks about 1% better. I don't necessarily talk about that, but I will say, like, can you find ways to improve, in any area? I think people sometimes get really confused and they say, oh, I want to get better at passing, shooting, dribbling, or rebounding. I'm thinking, well, that's not easy. And that's going to take quite a long time. But I do find people that focus on, certain particular areas of their game and really try to improve that specifically in the off season. And you find that you grow quickly. You gain faster. I think, like me, when I played, I was good at all 3 sports. But you know what? I always tell my family, my mother will always tell this to me, is I don't think I ever could have been as good as I was in any of the sports, because I never truly focused on one. I was right after basketball season to baseball season, right after baseball season to football season. And I think some of the other kids that I used to grow up with, they would just focus on one. And I would say, oh boy, I can only imagine if I really just focused on one thing, like year round. And so that's what we talk about with people, is just, winning the day, day to day, trying to process that one at a time. And however big your step is, just make sure you take a step. That's the most important thing.
Awesome. I like that. I'm a big believer of Kaizen.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great, and I know a lot of people are using it now, but I think it's worldwide, man. And it's a really good thing to follow. So yeah.
Yep. Yep. And now let's talk, because I have to say congratulations to you first. I
Thank you
forgot to
very
say
much.
congratulations to you, because why? You are now the head coach of Indonesian men's national team. Winning a title is one thing, but being asked to lead a national team, that's a different kind of pressure. So what went through your head when you got the call to coach the national team?
I probably think the first thing I thought was, is this really happening right now? That's the first thing I was thinking, because people know me here. I think a lot of people would have the sentiment to say, hey, he should have probably been the coach, or they should have gave him a chance a while ago after, a couple coaches of the year. And I thought the same thing too, but no disrespect to any other coaches. I just always thought at least I should be involved in the program, in some way, shape, or form, because I understand the players so well here. But with that being said, I think that was my first initial thing, was, is this really happening? And then I was thinking, man, about time, because for a long time I was thinking, man, I know I could do a good job here. And I don't know if it's going to be a championship or gold medal in every level or every single time. That's not easy or predictable. I think there's so many other great countries in Malaysia and Thailand and Philippines, and even Vietnam will probably be rising up soon. So, there's great competition level. But when it comes to just leading the program and pushing this Indonesia basketball in the right direction, I believe that I can really help with that. Number one, like we discussed before, with the mentality, the mindset, the system, the rules, the details, all of those things. I think the program has been missing a bit of the past. And I think also playing the style that I think suits Indonesia, which I think, we're going to try to bring here as well. So I was so happy, man. I think it was a long time coming. I had a lot of people in my in my Prawira family and also the IBL family that had been pushing for me to be it. First of all, I do got to give a lot of credit to my coaches. I think without them, they've been a part of all my coaches of the years and really helps me see the game in different ways, maybe that I don't see. But they have been big pushers of me and also holding me accountable. So everybody that was involved to get me to this point, I'm really happy, and I hope I'm going to do the best job that I can do.
I'm happy for you too, man. Because when I saw the news, wow, I was like, wow, it's been a long time coming. Finally.
Yes, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So it was great. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. But let's be real, right? What are the biggest invisible challenges Indonesian basketball is facing right now? Because you have so many competitors around in these regions. You have
Yes.
Thailand, Philippines, maybe Malaysia, Singapore.
Yeah. No, that's the biggest thing. I think again, this country, along with a lot of other countries outside of Philippines and Thailand, the basketball is really starting to grow fast. There's more interest. I think more kids are playing at a younger age and being trained maybe better than I was in my past, or just different ways. I think being around the game more. But I will say that it's still not at the same level as those countries, when it comes to how advanced those countries are in the game of basketball, and just also how many players they have to choose from. I mean, you look at a country like Philippines, I mean, they've done a great job in getting so many Phil-Ams, right, throughout such a long time, as well as having, really high quality local players, Filipinos. They just been doing this for such a long time. They've been playing professional basketball all the way back, I think, even to the 80s. So, I think just being a little bit behind the eight ball when it comes to that, just maybe just the player development. Some of it is size. I think Indonesia is starting to get better and finding more kids with some more size, but continuing to push that method and create that youth programs all around, and being able to touch each provincial city, all the provinces around Indonesia, to develop those pipelines of players. So nobody gets lost in the mix. But yeah, I think that's the most the initial thing. And then I think, it's always going to come down to mindset. I think I'm a big believer in that too. I think, countries like Philippines, just like we've talked about, it's an expectation to win. They come into this place and they're like, we I don't know how many time winner they are. I probably got to do my research, but it's a lot. And they've always represented Asia, pretty much every year, even World Cups. They're trying to obviously push maybe potentially for the Olympics, stuff like that. And so that's the standard. Is that going to happen next year or even, next week? Probably not for Indonesia. But are we pushing and chasing for that? Absolutely. And we're just trying to close the gap in any way that we can. So I think one of the things that I'm going to definitely try to bring as a mindset and mentality to understand that we can go up against these teams. It's not impossible, i.e., our country did do it in Vietnam in the 2022, I believe, SEA Games, and was able to conquer Philippines in the final. But, it's going to always be an uphill battle against those couple countries, because they've done a great job of not only having great locals, but also having the mixed bloods and doing a good job of keeping them in their programs and developing them. So that's going to be the challenge. And there's going to be a lot of challenges, man. It's not going to be some sort of overnight success story. It's going to be just like anything that I've ever done in my Prawira or Saigon Heat. There's always going to be a process. In my Prawira in year 2, I won a championship. In my Saigon Heat in year 4, I won a championships. All of that has been somewhat of a process, Yeah.
Just now you mentioned about the bigger talent pool in Philippines. How about Indonesia? Because I think I saw the team list, like for preliminary team list, like
Yes.
50 players, something like that.
Right. Yeah, we ended up picking 45 from the IBL, and then we also have an extra list for naturalized and heritage players. We don't know yet what the rules are going to be from Thailand. So we don't know if they're going to allow naturalized or heritage, or what they're going to allow. So we have to wait for that. But for now, we wanted to create a competitive environment around the national team. I think right now what we've seen in Indonesia is some of the big clubs like Satria Muda. They're 11-time champion in this country. So they've won a lot of times, and Pelita Jaya's obviously winning and being in the BCL, and they do a lot of big things. Most of the players come from those teams. And what we wanted to create is, we have to touch the entire league. There's really good players from all over the league, and we have to give all these guys a shot and understand that they're being watched. So this list is not essentially that we're going to come with 45 players to a training camp, but we are going to say, hey, you guys are on the list. We've noticed you, and we're going to keep watching you as this season goes on and continue to do well and compete and try to perform and show that you are worthy of, making it to a national team training camp. So that's what we did. Within that, I think we are starting to find more players with size, even in our league. There's a lot more lengthy players, tall players, specific players, specialists, as well as Indonesian Americans or Indonesian Europeans. We have started to continue to find some of those as well. So definitely, I love what our federation is doing. And I think they're really aggressive in trying to grow the game and get better and compete at the highest levels.
So if you had to predict right now at this moment, where would Indonesian team finish in the coming SEA Games? What's your prediction?
Man, you gonna put that on me like that? It's not until December. I haven't even seen the team. I haven't been into practice. I haven't done anything yet, but I know the expectation is high here around this country, and I know a lot of people want to win. So for now, I'm not gonna throw that out there. I'm not gonna give any type of clickbait, but I will definitely say we're going to be competitive. I think it's going to be a fun style of brand of basketball to watch. We'll be definitely prepared, I think, for the SEA Games, and it'll be exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Because you still need time to build up that team, so it's hard to predict right now because we don't even know the rules, if they allow naturalized players or not.
Right, exactly. So I could say something to you now and then say, oh, we're like Cambodia, we're allowing imports. It's like, oh, here we go. So we got to know those things first, and then we could probably have a better answer for you. Yeah.
So if you are given full control of Indonesian basketball, maybe from under 14 all the way up to the senior team, where would you start, like, the process?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the most important thing right now, I think, in Indonesia is finding the connection between the federation and all the provincial perbasis, which is like the head of basketballs in each city. Each city has, a basketball chairman, I guess, and everybody runs it through there. So connecting with those and finding the lists of players, the best players in all of those places, and making sure that they're on our radar and things like that, so we don't miss any players. And then I think the next thing is just, developing what you care about. I think that's what's always important. So when you're at the 14-year-old level and you want to install maybe not the full offensive set, I think it's not as important at that age, but maybe about the rules and the structure and the standard and how you practice and how you set up your defense and maybe some of the calls and some of the ways you want to, pass the ball and move the ball, some of these more simple things that you want to bring in, but they mean so much. I think that's the most important thing, which is creating a foundation so that everyone can be kind of on the same accord from 14 all the way up to senior, and everything is similar, because that's when you find the really good programs is like 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 23-year-olds. They're not all running different stuff. They're not speaking different languages. They're not, talking about, hey, we run this play over here. What do you guys do? Like, no, it's all connected. It's all similar. Every coach is going to have their own thing, which we would obviously allow. But most of what we're trying to do should be all connected and intertwined. And I think that can make it flow for years to come,
Is there a united, I mean, how do I put it? Like a same principle or same style among all the city teams or province team and a national team?
Actually, that's the goal and hope that I have once I really get into this, because right now I'm still in my season, but we are starting to work obviously in parallel with this. But that would be the goal. I think as of now, I would definitely say no to that question. I think there's a lot of, let's say, unstructured basketball being taught, and that's no disrespect to anyone, but I think that just building a foundation of how do we want to play defense, how do we want to play offense, but also how do we want to teach the techniques. how we want people to see the game, look at the game. Do we want people to cut? All the specificities of the game, and we want to make sure that each coach is understanding of that, and then maybe creating some sort of guideline or pamphlet or something that people can follow. And what we will do is invite all of the provincial coaches to attend a lot of the training camps when we do this, so they can obviously watch the practice, but also meet with us. We can have clinics, we can talk, we can sit down, they can share, and then we can make sure that they're involved so that we build those relationships, because you don't want to always get a player, not that it's always everybody gets it, even in the NBA, but you don't always want to get a player that's totally, doesn't know anything about basketball besides dribbling and shooting, because that's what a lot is being taught right now is dribble, 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 shoot, shoot, develop those skills, and then you'll learn the rest. And I think the brain of the game is dropping at times, and I think that that's also not being taught. Just feel the reads, the instinct of the game. And so that's something that, we have ideas, we have ways of teaching that. And I think just continuing to get into the community and welcoming the coaches to learn, because I think this whole thing is not about hiding information. It's about sharing information. So that's the most important thing.
Exactly. I totally agree. And just now you mentioned about the style that suits Indonesian basketball. So
Yes.
what identity do you want to build for this? Like when people see Indonesian basketball, we know they're gonna play like this style and stuff like that.
Yeah. On the surface right now, I think the vision is to obviously first you must be a tough basketball team. Every team that I've ever coached, physically tough, always up for a fight, defensive team. My 3 years in the IBO, we've been number one, number two, and number five in defense. My 3 seasons here with Prawira, and right now and if I last checked, we were number three in the league. So we've always been that standard, which has always kept us in games, even let's say our offense isn't that good. So being able to rely on that defense, even as people are seeing in the NBA, look how the Warriors won last night. They really just shut down the Rockets with defense, being such an offensive team that the Warriors are. So I think that that's going to be obviously the initial mindset is bringing, defense into the program much more. And then offensively, I just think playing the style that suits us, which is more up tempo, running. I think in years past, this team has been very slow. It's been more of a slowed down team, and playing a game really without a lot of pace. And I think in Asia, it's very hard to do that, because when you're playing teams that are bigger, taller, and stronger, you got to steal points, and you have to be able to beat people down the floor, which we do well, which we shoot threes so well here in this country, and have a lot of speed, right? We have a lot of speed in this country. So I think that suits this team, and I'm sorry, this country so much better. And even doing some different, tactics on defense. I can't tell you everything, but I will say that, there's going to be some things that I think could help. We don't know that yet, but we're definitely going to try out some new things. And I think, it'll be definitely a different look from Indonesia for sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing about that. And
Yes.
maybe like 10 years from now, what does success look like, not just for you, but for Indonesian basketball as a whole? Like maybe what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah. I think first it always is for any coach is the impact on the people. I think that's my most important thing is like, hey, they remembered Coach Dave is having a massive impact on just me as a human, teaching me so much, whether it's on court or even life lessons that they can take with them, throughout their continued careers or whatever the next phase of their life is at that time. And then I think the next thing is, obviously trying to qualify and go as far as we can. I think if this country continues to grow at the rate it is, and we keep finding more people in this well-populated country, because there's a lot of people in this country, keep, finding those people, whether it's, in the country or even outside of the country, let's say heritage players. I do believe that, getting back to an ASEAN World Cup, or I'm sorry, a World Cup would be obviously the goal. Maybe it's lofty, but I do believe that, I think that this country is ripe for really, really, really substantial growth, especially in 10 years. And I hope that I leave this place in a better, situation than I received it. That's my most important thing. So that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing that happen.
Yes. Yes. Hey,
So,
you know what?
yep.
We gonna definitely do this in 10 years. No, we'll definitely check in, but that's my goal, man. I really I have to appreciate Indonesia so much because of what they've given me, you know. So, and you know, for me, that's why I really wanted to be a part of this federation, because I want to give back. Well, that's what I want to do. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I still got a few questions for you actually.
Yes.
So please bear with me, coach.
No problem.
So, okay, what's the hardest part of being a head coach that no one sees? The behind the scene kind of grind. Can you tell us?
Late nights. I think that's something that all coaches probably can contest to, is whether you're preparing for a game, you're watching video 3, 4, 5 times in a row. Maybe you don't want to miss anything. Watching your practices, going through that process, developing scouts, building scouts, preparing for the next day. Practice plans. I've been up till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning with coaches doing a practice plan for a 10 a.m. practice. Just making sure that you're always detailed and sharp, because in this business and in this thing, it's just like you always want to be as prepared as you can for your players. You don't want to come in and miss any checks. You want to make sure that all the boxes are checked and correct, and you have as much solutions as you can for the boys. But I will say that over my time, speaking of taking the coaching hat off, I've learned to, as a coach, find a little bit of a balance in my life, in my personal life, being able to enjoy me, enjoy people, enjoy a city that I'm living in. Sometimes in my past, I don't even go anywhere because I'm just like practice, preparation, practice, watching film. Oh, it's already 10 o'clock. I'm going to go to sleep, or, whatever. And I think it takes the human out of you, right? And I think it's so important to make sure that you're living your life still. So I've always found it's good, and even talked to my coaches about doing things outside of basketball. Like, even for myself, I enjoy hitting a golf ball every now and then to kind of relieve my stress and just keep my mind off of it for an hour or two, and just enjoy myself, and go on a bike ride, or do stuff like that, go on a hike somewhere. I think that always helps balance you, and I think it helps clear your mind, to be sharper and more clear on what you want to do with your team. So that's what I try to do more often, especially as I grow older in this coaching business.
Do you meditate or something like that?
I don't. People have told me about it, and I know people that do. I just haven't done it yet. I would always think, can I meditate? I don't even know if I can go to that place yet. I'm thinking, I know my mom has, and I know people in my life have, but um, I might have to give it a try, because I heard people have only said good things about it. So yeah.
Okay. So what else? What else that still keeps you up at night?
I would say, the thought of worrying, right, about what's going to happen tomorrow, whether that's not necessarily a practice, I would say, but mostly the games, right? When you're tomorrow, we play, Pelita Jaya, in a big showdown at 8 p.m. And you're thinking, dang, did I do everything I could? Did I watch everything? How's the game going to go? You're playing the game in your mind. You're thinking, are we going to do well in the first quarter? How should we respond in the third quarter? And what am I going to do here when they do this? And you're just running through scenarios. And I think that that's not too healthy for you. It's also natural to do that, to be honest. That's what I always try to tell the guys. Like, just like everybody else, even though we've won a lot of awards here or whatever, we're no better than the next person. We don't look at it like that. But we would say that somebody say, "Hey, coach, I'm nervous," and I said, "That's normal." I feel a little bit of butterflies in my stomach. Yep, that's fine. Accept and appreciate all those feelings. You know, every time I played a game in my whole life, I was nervous. I might have been like I told you before, we play a team, maybe we're 20 points better than them. But before tip off, I was nervous, always, and it wasn't like, oh, I was nervous because I was scared. It was just like, you have all these thoughts in your head of what could go right or could go wrong. And you just always think about it. But once you really get to the flow in the game, all that stuff goes out the window, and you just do what you do, which you get into your element, right? And so I think that's probably the stuff that you think about the most. I probably would say I have to apologize to my coaches because sometimes I call them late and their wives because I'm thinking their wives probably like, why are you answering the phone at 1 a.m. in the morning when Coach Dave is calling and asking you about, hey, what should we do here? What do you think about this? So, sometimes I have to give them boundaries too. But they've been great. They've been great. They've been there for me. So it's good. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what is your biggest fear as a leader?
To disappoint people. I think you have to expect that as a leader, though. I think as a leader, you're always going to disappoint people. But I just think I came into this thing thinking, man, you know what? I want everybody to like me. And I think that was the wrong thing because that's not what it's about necessarily. If they like you, it's going to naturally happen. And if they don't, that is also totally fine because really what you're trying to teach is lessons. You're trying to take them from A to B, whatever that destination that they want to go. And then, hopefully you've done everything you can to try to help them succeed. And within that, just trying to do your best. But I think that's always been my thing is just not doing everything I can for the person, for the player. And that's why I think I'm so passionate. I work as hard as I can. Probably could do better. Everybody can do better. But, that's something that I always think about. And I think up in maybe till this year, speaking to some people, and I said, I think you have to expect to disappoint people in leadership because, everybody's not gonna, I don't think any leader in the history of life has ever not disappointed someone, whether it's the greatest coach ever or the greatest, war general ever or whoever, it's just that's how life is. So just trying to, hopefully do everything I can and make sure that whenever my season is done with that type of that team that I've done and exhausted everything I can to help them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. Thank
Yeah.
you. And what is something you are still trying to figure out as a coach?
Yeah, I think that's a great one because that is my next phase of my growth is continuing to learn. I mean, one thing we can never stop doing in this life is learn, but we never have all the answers. I definitely don't have all the answers. I'm always trying to find and learn from European leagues and NBA and whoever I can, coaching friends of mine and just staying within it. I think my biggest thing is probably my sideline activity. I guess is that a good word? To just be more of a calming presence at times for people, especially for the players. And maybe I'm a very passionate person. I'm very into the game. I would say maybe European like with the coaches that run around and throw their hands up all the time. Maybe not as bad, but who knows? But the reality is, I think controlling that because as a leader, you want to also them to look at you and be calm when they see you. You want to be able to give them clear messages and clear advice. And I think there's been times in my career where I've been so fired up that maybe I wasn't able to give the feedback that was proper in that moment. And being able to have a clear mind always supersedes the crazy angry mind. So I think emotional stuff on the sideline is definitely one of them. And then just continuing to grow in regards to, video, player development, every area, to be quite honest. I think personally, that's probably the most thing is probably my emotions, but I think it also makes who I am in a way. I don't think we remember Obradovich or some of these guys if they were just like quiet coaches, but he's almost 70 years old and he's red faced and he's and I think people will forever remember him because of that too. So but again, there's a balance. There's definitely a balance and I think I can do better with that. But overall, in general, I will say that this is something that's been on my mind lately. I want to grow in every area as a coach. I think I can pick out one specific area, but I think there's so much more to learn in basketball. There is.
I saw it firsthand, like you were intense on the court
Yes.
side because last year BCL in
Yes.
Mongolia,
Right. Right.
the coach Dave never
Absolutely.
changed. He's
No, man,
intense.
hey, and that's where that's a funny point because my mother, as you
Uh,
know, she'll I remember early on in the process, she's like, "Did you watch the video of your game?" I'm like, you're thinking, why is she saying that? She going, "You can't do that." She was saying, you gotta just watch yourself. You need to calm down and stuff like that. Because it's a mom, it's your mom, right? And then when she said that, I'm thinking, she's probably right, and so it's not an easy thing to control, I'll be honest, because you're so invested and you're just fighting so hard. Really, I feel like I'm fighting for them. But like I said, I don't want to get in the way, my emotions get in the way of their emotions, you know? And so I think that that's something that I continue to want to grow. And I know that I really have to make a bigger effort on that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, coach, last question.
Yes.
If every young coach or players listening to this episode and they took just one idea from you and apply it starting tomorrow, what would you want that idea to be?
Young coaches, is that what you said?
Young coaches or players?
Okay. I think the biggest thing is make a clear vision on what you want. I think if you're really young, that's hard to say. I don't think you can say, hey, you can say you want to be the president, but it's probably not going to happen. But if you know exactly that you want to do basketball, whether you're a coach or a player, make a clear vision of exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it and how you want to get better at it. I think that's the most important thing on a day-to-day basis is like, look, how do we grow from A to B? How do I improve as a coach? How do I learn as a coach? How do I improve as a player? How do I learn as a player? And really track that progress, track that process. It goes back to the Kaizen. It goes back to the day-to-day process of just getting better, because that's what I did. And that's what I'm a constant learner. I think I'm always challenging myself. I always like to keep what I call exercising the mind on a daily basis, which is like, whether I'm reading a book or I'm learning from another coach, I'm just trying to find new ways. And I think that is so important for people nowadays, which is to continue to provide good information and good feedback to people, as well as my players. The one thing that I always try to do is keep it fresh with the boys and keep them exercising their mind. So the biggest thing is commit to something, go for it, and put your all into it. And I think there's times where people think that dribbling a basketball or shooting a basketball or yelling on the sideline as a coach, thinking that that's really what you're doing. And I even have conversations today about this. Is like, you can go shoot 1,000 shots in a gym and you could still not be a good basketball player. You have to do so much more to be a good basketball player. You have to study the game. You have to learn the game. And I push people, coaches and players, to learn the game, right? Not just learn the skill, but learn about basketball. Me growing up, I used to watch basketball like it was religion, and I would learn so much from Jason Kidd and all these other players and watch their tendencies and watch their flows, even watch coaches, how they operate, how they call timeouts, how they move around, and learn why and when they're trying to do these things. What's the reason for it? I just believe that this part of the game is not necessarily advancing faster than the skill set of the game. And I think that if you continue to bring this back, I think the game is going to take even to a whole nother level. So I would just recommend people to really learn the game within the game. I think so many people do skill training and skill development, which is absolutely needed. It's required in basketball, but I don't think people do the development here. And I think that that's the most important thing to advance the game, in my opinion.
It's funny because the other day, I think 2 days ago, I watched a video of, I think it's Austin Rivers. He talked about something similar, like
Really?
study the game, watch films. He said,
Yes.
because the players in the NBA, he said that their abilities are almost the same. They are very much talented. But what separates the good from the great from the good is that they study the film, they watch film.
Yes, and if you look at, right, like our era, when we grew up and watched, it wasn't that the player was better than the player today. Maybe some of them were, of course, like Michael Jordan, we know, but like it was that they knew how to play within a system and a frame, and they knew where their teammate was going to be. They knew to do this, they knew to do that, based upon their studying and watching the game and not being occupied by the internet or the PlayStation or whatever it is. And you just saw much higher IQ basketball. And I think if Austin Rivers said that, he's totally right, because in my opinion, I think everybody's worried about being able to dribble, shoot threes, which you have to do. I'm not that person that's saying you don't need to do that. You definitely need to do that, but you need to learn the game. You need to understand the skills. Rajon Rondo is somebody who speaks on record on this all the time, and I think he's one of the smartest basketball players to ever play the game. If you just watch 20 assists in a game. How would he have 20 assists in a game? I mean, that's just not common. Because he understands, everything about the defense, everything about his teammate, what his coach wants. Why does Draymond Green have 2 consecutive $100 million contracts? He scores 5 points a game, right? I mean, I haven't heard in NBA history. I think he would be one of, when we look at this in 15 years, Draymond Green finished his career averaging 6 points a game. He's had two consecutive $100 million contracts because of here. That's the only reason. Obviously, he has some skill and talent to be in the NBA, but he's literally playing the game, within the game. He's beating people with his brain. That's really what he does. So, I'm not saying every player can be Draymond Green, but what I am saying is like the more players that are skillful and are able to use this, you will go so much further in this game. People don't even understand. I've seen so many people that jump 45 inches and can do windmills and shoot beautiful threes, but can't run a set, can't remember a play, can't remember a defense, don't know how to pass it to their teammate, all of these different things, right? So I think that is the big step, and I think coaches have to push that as well, not just the player.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Coach.
Yeah.
You say it right.
Right.
Yep. So, Coach, I think that's it for our conversation tonight.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your honesty and generosity.
Yes.
Sharing
Absolutely.
your knowledge.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is great. I've always, I always enjoy talking to you and seeing you. And like I said, I even wish we would get to meet sometime when the ABO would come back one day, and do it all over again. But I always enjoy it. I appreciate it. And I'm always watching and following Malaysia basketball as well. And I always hope the best for them too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night, Coach.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.